In the autumn of 1620, William Brewster, a leader of the Pilgrims and a Mayflower passenger who served as the religious leader of the Plymouth colony. Brewster's Pilgrim group was sent ahead to build their settlement on a plot of land that was sacred near a Wampanoag burial ground. Despite warnings from a lone elder of the tribe, the Brewster insisted that no harm would come to his people. With timber gathered and walls built, they raised a scarecrow at the edge of the village to mark their new home. When Brewster's settlers arrived on the windswept shores, they didn't know the land they'd chosen had been set apart for centuries, guarded by the spirits of the Wampanoag dead. But their hunger for freedom and desperation to survive the coming winter overcame their fear of any warnings. One elder, barely visible at the forest's edge, watched as they drove their first stake into the ground, muttering words the settlers could not understand. He spoke a warning that the land was living, a sacred bond between the Wampanoag people and their ancestors not to be disturbed. The settlers scoffed, convinced their prayers alone would shield them. The first signs of trouble began as whispers on the wind, drifting through the village as the settlers lay in their cots at night. Voices like leaves crackling over embers hissed from the trees, their words twisted and ancient. In the whispers, the settlers heard their sins recited: trespassers, defilers, usurpers. Children began waking in the night, speaking of shadowy figures watching them through the cracks in their walls, and of hands that reached up from beneath their cots, cold as stone and scented of earth. On the fifth night, one of the men, known to have felled the largest tree near the Wampanoag burial site, was found dead. His mouth was stuffed with soil, his limbs splayed and twisted, his eyes open and bulging with terror. Those who found him tried to dig a grave, but quickly discovered that any hole they made filled instantly with blood-soaked soil. They left his body to rot, too terrified to touch it further. Fearing they were cursed, Brewster ordered a prayer vigil, and the settlers huddled together near the scarecrow they'd built to ward off spirits and storms. But as they recited the Lord's Prayer, a gust of cold air swept through the village, and the scarecrow creaked and shuddered as if something were trying to tear itself free from inside it. Its burlap eyes shifted, fixing on each terrified face in turn. Then, with the hollow scrape of wood against earth, it pulled one splintered arm from its post and lurched forward, straw crackling as it dragged itself toward the gathering, dirt falling from its rotting mouth as it spoke in a broken whisper: trespassers, defilers. The villagers scattered, running into the forest, but the curse followed them. Spirits drifted between the trees, their spectral forms flickering in and out of sight. They whispered warnings in ancient Wampanoag, guttural and echoing, filling the settlers' minds with fractured visions of fire, blood and bone. Some of the settlers were yanked backward by invisible hands, their screams swallowed by the forest, leaving only silence in their wake. In the darkness, those who dared look back saw ghastly forms rising from the earth, figures with hollow, angry eyes and skeletal faces. The spirits of the land's guardians chased them deeper into the wilderness, murmuring their fate with each step. Only a few made it back to the village, trembling, broken, and haunted by the visions they'd seen. In the grey light of dawn, they found the scarecrow once again tethered to its post, but now it had grown. Its arms were longer, thin and skeletal, and from its shoulders hung the hollow faces of those who had not returned. Their mouths were stretched open, frozen in screams of terror, their empty eyes staring into nothingness. That was their first and last Thanksgiving. They abandoned the village, leaving it to the spirits and the cursed scarecrow. Those who survived would tell the tale only in hushed tones, warning others never to disturb sacred ground, for the spirits would come, not in anger, but in a dark and ancient duty to protect what was theirs. And on cold November nights, passers-by claimed to hear faint whispers in the air, calling out to intruders, their warnings laced with an unbreakable curse.